I want to thank everyone for joining me today. My name is Patrick Halstead, and I am InfoPath MVP. Today, I would like to talk to you about migration and versioning. Marcia, are you taping?
Yes.
Thank you so much. So we have 3 topics to discuss today, and I have quite a few demos. First topic is versioning. You've got an InfoPath form, and you need to make a change to it. You need to create version 2. We'll show you how to do that, a couple techniques. And then let's say you need to migrate forms from one site to another site. Another typical scenario, you've got a SharePoint site that you're moving from one site to another. We'll talk about the out-of-box techniques to how to do that. And then thirdly, we'll talk about converting your old forms. So let's say you have version 1 and version 2 of your forms, and you've got a lot of data stored in XML format, and you want to convert that to the new V2 format because your schema or your data source changed. And I'll show you several techniques to do that. So first off, let's talk about versioning. The simplest versioning technique is not to do anything and just use the one version and just republish over it. And this is the default. So you'll add new nodes to your form, new fields, and you won't delete or change any existing fields. And that's the easiest way to do it. In fact, if you have InfoPath, if you go into the form options underneath the File tab, for example, let's do a form here. So there's lots of forms to look at today. So I have a form, a V1 version of a form. And here underneath the File form options, we have versioning. And the default setting here is to always automatically update and upgrade. And what does that mean? The template will automatically be updated when they have the browser. That's always the case. When you're using the InfoPath filler, you have the option here of updating the form template or letting the user decide. It's never a good idea to change this setting. Just leave it blank. The more interesting setting is the second one, updating the existing XML forms. If you create a new version by changing the data source, by adding a field, your old forms will automatically upgrade and get converted to the new form if the change to your data source was relatively simple. And that's why that's the default, because InfoPath can automatically upgrade or convert your V1 XML forms to a V2 if the change you make is only an add, a simple add. Okay, so that's the default versioning. Now we also want to show you how to do side by side, so that if you can't do the default because you're not simply adding nodes, but you actually have to change a node, or you have to delete a node, or you have a very significant change in your data source. And by the data source, what I mean is this thing on the right here. For the first version of my customer contact form, you can see here I have customer contact. Let's see here. I hope you can see my screen. I have customer contact is the name of the data source. Underneath that, I have customer info. This is just a sample form, but this is one data source. Now, let's say that I have another version 2 of my form, and this one has a different data source, and it's significantly different. So here we have version 2, and you can see here that we've got customer info, issue info, and you can see that we've added a new node. But what we're going to do here is we're going to change this in a significant way. For example, by just changing the root node. Okay. Now you'll get this warning message. This warning message is really telling you that now you're going to make a change that is no longer backward compatible. So if you change the node name, the field, the root node, customer contact to something different, it will make the data source no longer auto-upgradable. So we'll do that. Now I've already publish these forms to SharePoint, and I'm going to show you what I did in a second. Basically, with this approach, when you have to change your data source, in other words, the schema is going to change, then you want to use a side-by-side technique, and that is to publish the InfoPath form as a content type to your SharePoint site. And then your form library will be changed to reference the content type. The new version will also be published as a content type, and the form library will also reference that content type. So let's take a look at this example. So this is when your data source changes, you need side-by-side. Side-by-side is this content type approach, and basically it's very easy to do. Once again, you change the old form template. You've got now a new version, and you saw that I made a significant change to that new version. I published it to a separate location, and let me just show you that site real quick. So I've got a form library here called pH versioning. I've already done this. I've already created two forms here. One of them is published with the old version. You can see here that this is V1. And then I also have created a new version, which is V2. I just want to see some information here. Got some data. And save. Now, before I started the webinar, I actually created, published both of those out there, and I created Marcy's with the V2. So if you don't have, if the schema changes in a significant way, you obviously can't. If you publish the content type out there over itself, then the new forms will open with the old data source. So here I've got Marcy V3, but you can see here I can open the new one with the new V2 form, and I can open the old one with V1. Now, how did I do this? In the form library set, we have content types specified underneath the Advanced Settings tab. You're going to be specifying them here. So you're going to click yes here, and then so you're going to specify the content types, and you're going to change it from no to yes at the top, and then you just click OK. Now once you've done that, you can come in here and you can associate those content types to your form. When I publish the form, you can see that I'm going to publish it. It has that, it's already been published. You publish it to your SharePoint site, and it's published to a form server templates location. So it's not actually published directly to the form library like you would used to. Instead, you're publishing it to a form server template. It's published as a content type. So you can see here that if I were to publish this again, it's going to give me a wizard, and it's going to say content type. That's really important that you specify site content type. And then as you go through this, you have the option of specifying the site columns. So here we have two properties we're promoting to SharePoint. And this is the one trick when you're doing content types, is you have to map the existing promoted properties to what we call site columns. If you've got a question, I'm going to take questions at the end of the webinar. Because I've got lots to show you. So anyway, this is the one trick, is you have to actually, for both forms have to actually map their promoted properties to site columns. Now let's take a look at it again. On the site, you can see that we have those two content types. And what I've done is I've actually specified that you can take P1 V1 off. So if I make P1, if I uncheck visible here, then I no longer see this as an option when I'm filling out the form library. So I only have the V2. Okay, that's key. Is you want to prevent people from using V1 because you don't need to. They can still see V1. That's the benefit. They can always see the original content, but you want them to fill out the most recent version, so you disable the previous content type from creating a new form. And one more thing. So the other change that I made here, I've actually gone into the view, file documents view, and I have selected those two site columns, ph name and ph phone. And you can see that the form of mapping to those columns. You can see that different data mapping to those columns. Okay, so that's the side-by-side approach using content types. And it is the lowest cost approach. I'm going to take a quick look just to make sure that you guys can still see my screen and everything.
Patrick, we can see your screen.
For that comment.
Patrick?
Okay.
Patrick, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Yes, I can see everything just fine. Everything's going okay, but I'm experiencing a little bit of distortion occasionally in the audio. I don't know if anybody else is experiencing that, but just wanted to mention that. Nothing's been lost, but it just sometimes sounds a little weird.
We have a zoom in tool here that I can run zoom it.exe that might help us see the screen. I'll use it when I'm focusing, Michael, so that might help. Marcy, if there is cutout, please let me know. Try to make the best of this. I'll try to go slower. Okay, so once again to recap, when you're doing versioning, the default is to always upgrade in place. In other words, publish your V2 over your V1, and the old forms will open with the new version. If you make a change to your data source, which causes you to get that warning message, which is this is now a change that is going to not be backward compatible. In other words, you change the main root node of your data source, or you make another change by deleting nodes or something that is significant, then you want to use the side-by-side approach, which is to publish one form as a content type and another form as a separate content type. The names have to be different. That's the one key thing that you need to remember. And then you'll associate those content types to one form library, so you can have both the old version and the new version in the same location. Okay, that's side by side. Now you can also do this if you don't have SharePoint. You can just publish them to a content to a network drive. So once again, these are the steps that we'll send you for setting up the SharePoint content type. It's a relatively well-known procedure. The other approach is to use a network version if you don't have SharePoint. The key thing here is, just like I said with SharePoint, you need to make sure that those names are different. If you publish it as a content type with the same name, what's going to happen is the old form will open with the new one because the name will be the same. So you have to make sure you call it V2 when you publish it. Okay, so the number 2 topic is migration. So when you're migrating from one site to another, the easiest way to do this is to just explore forms using the Explorer view. Now, if you've got thousands and thousands of forms, this could take some time, but it typically does work. So what we'll do is we'll just copy these here, local machine. Okay, so I've copied those 3 XML files down. Now I create a new library. You just upload those forms to that new library. And let's do that real quick. So create a new library called PH versioning 2. And we're going to click on Documents Upload. And you can do multiple. Use Windows Explorer here too. So we'll just select RCV3 in my Patrick document here. Let's do RCV3. Now this form library does not have anything associated with it. So actually the form opens just fine. This is not the scenario that you don't have the same site, so that the form library doesn't have any associated content types. And what you need to do in this case is, first of all, you need to associate the content type. Go through that again, clicking yes for manage content types, and then you add the content type here, HV2. And then what you do is on the Documents tab, actually on the Live tab, there's a view called Relink Documents. Relink Documents, underneath the Documents tab, you can relink all. And that's what you'll do. And that's when you're moving from one site to another. Okay, I'm not sure why it's opening the filler, but move on. Now, the other technique, if you don't have SharePoint, is you can use our Modify InfoPath PI tool. And what you do is you just install the tool. I think it's like $25 or something. And then you'll right-click on the XML, and you'll see the Modify PI tool there. And we'll select it. When we select it, it's going to show us the existing location of the form template. So you'll then type in the new location, and you'll click OK. And it will replace it so the next time you open it. And this will work on a folder. So if you have a million forms in a folder, you can do this across all of them. It's relatively quick. It's a lot quicker than a Relink document, and it's a lot easier. So this is just another technique. You could buy this little tool, export all your forms, relink them all in one place, in one fell swoop, and then re-upload them. Okay, so those are two techniques for migrating forms. Let's see if we have any questions. Okay, so the next topic is what happens when you have a whole bunch of old data in your V1 format and you want to move it to the new location, V2 format. So there's three techniques for converting old XMLs. They all require an XSL transform. XSL stands for XML style sheet, and I'll talk about this in a second. It's not something that is easy to learn. It's not code, but Visual Studio is one way you can edit them. In other words, there are a bunch of tools out there that allow you to edit XSLT, but it isn't specifically what I would refer to as code. It's not something that's compiled that runs. It's a mapping file. So it maps your old XML in the V1 format to the new one. And I'll show you a couple of examples. The easiest way to create these is to use Visual Studio. Of course, you can send us your old form, your new form, by a support incident, and usually we can get a mapping done within an hour. So if you have this requirement and you don't want to learn XSLT, you can send it to us, and we'll turn it around in a day or two. You can also, of course, do it yourself, and there are a lot of books on XSLT. It's not that hard, but it does require learning that XSL transform language. And what so what we're trying to do here is we're trying to map, for example, from this old version on top, and this is the XML. I'm just showing you the InfoPath form in Notepad here for an old form, Fred Jones and Acme. And you can see I've overlaid the data source here in my fields, name, company, and so forth. We're mapping this old format to the new format. And you can see here, this is a different schema, a different data source. So if you have such a huge change, you need to provide an XSLT mapping. The way you do that, once again, is you can use Notepad, you can use Visual Studio, you can use some other tool out there. You're going to create a file that has these XSL tokens in it. It's going to tell it how to map. Lots of samples out there. We have a sample we're going to send you as part of this webinar today. You can learn it. It's not that hard, but it will require a few hours of effort to get your hands around it. So here's an XSL sample. What we're going to do here is we're going to change it. Here's a new one, and we're going to add a section in here that's going to map the part of the old form to this product's own. So basically what we've done here is I'm just showing you that we've added a section. That's the change. That's how you would change it, is you just basically type in there. Now let's show a few examples. So I've got 3 examples I want to show you. One is on demand. I'm sorry, the first one. The first one is using out-of-box functionality. That's the file merge. This is something that Microsoft created back in 2003. When I was a development manager at Microsoft, we did this feature, and it is unsupported. It's called file merge. Let me show you what that is first. So I have in here the agenda form. Open this side so you can see this form. Now this was from 2003. So this is an example of with SDK. That's the software development kit from InfoPath 2003. And that's still very valid today. So you can use that SDK to create the same technique for 2010 and 2013. They do work. What we've done here is we've added to the manifest a one line. Let me just show you that quick. Jumping around here. So I'm going to open up the manifest in Notepad. The next describes your InfoPath form. We talk about this in our master class. This is a bit of an advanced topic here. So this is basically describing all the pieces of my form. One of them in the manifest is this line here, called import parameters. Now this is how you control the file merge feature. Okay. Now this feature is enabled by default. Usually it's used to merge an existing XML into the same form. So it's like, in other words, you can merge V1 into V1, or you can merge the V2 XML into V2. So usually it's used to do that in-place merge. But you can also do a merge from V1 to V2. Now here what we've done is we've specified 2 lines for import. We've got one on top, which is hard to understand, but it's issue tracking. So that ISS stands for issue tracking, simple. And then it's also allowing me to migrate a meeting agenda form. So let me show you this designer here. In designer, if you go to File, Form Mods, you'll see that there is a underneath the Advanced, there's a checkbox here for Enable Form Merging. So most of you probably haven't used this feature, but you can enable form merging. And when you do that, and we open the form, you'll have underneath the File menu, Save and Send, you'll have this option to merge forms. So we can pick, you would pick Merge V1, V2. In this case, I'm going to pick Issue 1 and Issue 2. These are merging a form with a different data source into my meeting agenda form. So I'm actually going to be merging my issues into my meeting agenda form. It's a form of aggregation, but it can also be used to do migration. So here you can see that those 2 items were incorporated into the form down here. And what it does, it obviously doesn't delete the existing one, but you can change the transform, delete the existing one, but by default it won't do that. I'll just leave it there, so I have to delete it. This isn't a big deal. Okay, so this technique allows you to manually merge a V1 into a V2. So obviously the downside here is, number one, this feature is not supported by Microsoft. It's very undocumented. Even though there is a nice section in the SDK for 2003, it's something that not very many people use. So you might have trouble using it. If you do, you can talk to us. We can help you. The second technique is to use an on-demand conversion. Now this is also hard, but this definitely is doable. Let me show you this here. So I have here, I have a form in our admin tool. So we're using you don't have to use our web service product to do this, but but for the purpose of this demo, I've got a client form and a client form new loaded into my web service. Now this is actually a form template, and but it has one document associated with it. So I'm going to open up that document. And the technique here is I've got an old form, and this is an old form with some products. I've got 3 cats, my Tonkinese, my Turkish van, and my domestic shorthair. So I'm going to convert this into a new format. So what I do here is I have a link. This, obviously, you want this to look a little better. The form is not a great example of an InfoPath form, and the link could be made to look like a button. But the link is going to open up the new form, so just specify a SharePoint site. And at the very end here, you can see doc ID equals 221. So let's specify the old XMLs number. So when the new form loads, what it does is it looks at that old XML number, and it actually loads it into the form, and then it does the transform. How do we do this? Let me show you the technique, and then I'll finish with the final demo. So this is the new form. This new form has a rule, and when we finish loading, we get the input parameter on the right. We're using qRules to do that. So we're getting that doc ID. Then we actually have to get the document. Load the document from the web service. You would load it from SharePoint. Then transform it. This should be transformed. And that transform is actually using the XSLT. See that right here. Okay, so this is a relatively hard technique. I'm not going to lie. We have a lab on this. We'll get that as part of the webinar goodies. If you have qRules, this is a good technique. Okay, the other technique is to use our migration tool. This allows for a batch conversion. So the first technique was manual. The second technique was on demand. They have to click a button. The third technique is batch. So you can do like 1 million documents in one fell swoop. Now this requires DBXL, but you can install the free trial, so you don't have to pay anything. You can install the free trial, and then you can install the migration tool, which is free. You can do your conversion, and then you can uninstall the trial. Now how this works is once you install the trial, you'll get a tool that looks like this. You'll connect it to the web service. You have to obviously upload your V1 and your V2 forms to the web service. And then you'll go in to transform and migrate. And what you'll do is you'll specify a configuration. In my case, I've got client form 2, and I've got client form new 2. And then you specify the XSL. This is once again in the transform file that is required. And then you click Run. Now in this case, we only have one document, and it will do that transformation. And it would, obviously, it works fine with lots of documents. And this is running a little bit slow because I'm abroad today, and it's going to the server in Seattle. So we finished the conversion. So now if I go back to my admin tool, close some of these windows. Go back to our admin tool. I'm going to click on the client form new 2. You can see here there's a new document there. I click on that and open it up. It's going to open up that form with my data there. So it's converted it. It's actually converted it and automatically saved it. And that's the third technique. So the benefit of that technique is that it can do a batch, can convert thousands and thousands of documents from one format to another. You do still need the XSLT. Okay, that's it for my demo. If you have any questions, I'm more than happy to take them. Hopefully the audio wasn't terrible. If it was, we will retape. So I'm here to answer any of your questions, and I think, Marcy, you have a quick advertisement you want to give people? Maybe not?
Sure. Let's see. I'm going to share out real quick. Let's see. Okay, hopefully you can now see my screen. I just wanted to mention we have a couple of upcoming training classes. We're doing an InfoPath Master Training, which is an in-depth class to help you take your form development to the next level. We have an online option and also an in-person option. The online option is going to be 5 half days, November 5th through 9th, and the in-person is 3 full days in Kirkland, Washington, and it will be November 27th through 29th. We do have a little bit of a webinar special, so if you're interested in joining the November classes, just send an email to coursemanager@qdabra.com for the discount information. And we also have an InfoPath 101 class for beginners, and that next class looks like it's going to be in December. So if you're interested in that, just send an email and we'll get you the dates. And that's it. Thanks.
So if anyone has an InfoPath question, I'm more than happy to respond. We're here for you once a week, free InfoPath stuff, goodies to go, and we really appreciate you coming and joining us. And if you've got any questions or comments, we appreciate your feedback. I think there will be a feedback survey as part of this go-to meeting, go-to webinar. And I don't see any questions. Marcy, do you see any?